To live alone, one must be either a beast or a god. Aristotle. This quote from Aristotle echoes through the centuries like a quiet challenge. But what about us, being surrounded by the noise of cities and the constant motion of digital life? Do we still understand what it means to be truly alone? Friedrich Nietzsche, a philosopher deeply attuned to the human psyche and its inner depths, once said, "Solitude makes us tougher towards ourselves and toward others, but it also empowers us." Friedrich Nietzsche, the gay science indeed. Solitude can be a source of strength. At first, this notion might sound irrational. After all, who would willingly choose isolation in a world that idolizes approval, gatherings, and constant social interaction? But this isn't just any form of solitude we're talking about. It's the kind that doesn't suppress but uncovers, not the kind that overwhelms, but the one that reshapes us. So let me ask you, are you truly able to be with yourself in complete silence without losing your mind? Or have you been escaping the one presence that will never leave you behind? Today we're diving into solitude, not as an empty void to be feared, but as a rich and fertile ground where the most remarkable souls in history have flourished. And maybe, by the end of this path, you'll realize that solitude is not the final chapter, but the first step toward your own greatness. What is solitude, really? If solitude holds the power to transform us, then what does it truly mean to be alone? Many people mistakenly equate solitude with feelings of neglect, rejection, or sorrow. But these emotions often stem from a lack of connection, not merely from the absence of people. At its core, solitude is less about how many people are around and more about the kind of presence we nurture, both within ourselves and in our environment. Nietzsche grasped this subtle distinction with clarity. He once stated, "Solitude is one thing, being alone is another." Friedrich Nietzsche, Twilight of the Idols. Being alone is a physical condition, but solitude is an existential state. You might be engulfed by a crowd and still feel unseen, or you could wander silently through a forest and feel a deep sense of wholeness. Philosopher Philip Koch articulated it precisely. Solitude is a period of experience unconnected with other people in perception, thought, emotion, and action. Philip Koch, Solitude, a philosophical encounter. So, genuine solitude isn't defined by absence, it's defined by presence. It's that sacred moment when the clamor of the world fades, allowing your inner voice to finally be heard. But has anyone ever harnessed that silence in a truly powerful way? The great souls who embraced solitude throughout history, some of the most profound figures in philosophy, spirituality, and the arts, didn't merely accept solitude, they actively sought it out. Jesus withdrew into the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights. His purpose wasn't to flee, but to face what dwelled within and to hear the Father's voice, far from the crowds. Buddha, after years of outward searching, attained enlightenment beneath a fig tree, in total silence and complete solitude. Before leading the Hebrew people to freedom, Moses spent extended periods alone in the desert, where he received his divine calling. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic philosopher-emperor, penned his most introspective meditations in moments of isolation. Henry David Thoreau, the American thinker and writer, lived for 2 years in seclusion by the shores of Walden Pond. It was there that he wrote, "I never found a companion that was so companionable as solitude." Henry David Thoreau, Walden Nietzsche, too, saw solitude as a way to cleanse and refine the soul. "When I am among many people, I live as the many do, and I don't think as I truly think. Eventually, it always feels like they want to exile me from myself and steal my soul. That's when I need the desert to become whole again." Friedrich Nietzsche. Dawn. These individuals didn't seek solitude as an escape from the world, but as a means of reconnecting with their innermost selves. In their lives, Solitude wasn't a punishment, it was preparation. But why did so many choose this path? What is it about solitude that makes it so profoundly powerful? The answer may lie in what it reveals, a kind of freedom that few ever dare to encounter. The absolute freedom found in solitude. When no one is watching, judging, or expecting anything from you, who do you become? Solitude, in its purest form, offers something exceedingly rare: complete freedom. It's the only condition where we can truly exist without shaping our behavior to please, conform to, or react to another. No roles, no facades, just our raw essence. Philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer captured this truth with precision. A man can only be himself when he is alone. And if he doesn't cherish solitude, he won't value freedom, for only in solitude is he truly free. Arthur Schopenhauer, Essays and Aphorism Society, though rich in connection, places invisible limits upon us. It demands conformity, compromise, and sacrifice. Even our closest and most loving relationships carry expectations to listen, to give, to show up. In solitude, all of that vanishes. What remains is who we truly are, unfiltered and unmasked. The essence of a solitary journey is freedom, the pure freedom to think, feel, and act exactly as one pleases. William Hazlitt, Table Talk Nietzsche, adds to this idea with unflinching honesty: "He who cannot bear to be alone must settle for being a slave." Friedrich Nietzsche, human, all too human, yet this freedom, though deeply desirable, is also unsettling. It comes with full responsibility. There is no one to blame, no path to follow, no one to imitate. And in that bare and liberating silence, we begin to uncover something even more profound: the inner harmony that only solitude can awaken. Inner harmony, the gateway to self-discovery. The silence of solitude isn't merely the absence of noise, it is a presence, the presence of what we avoid, what we've buried, and what we truly are. In our everyday lives, our minds are relentlessly disrupted. Social media, conversations, responsibilities, and external concerns constantly intrude. All of this builds a layer of static that drowns out our authentic feelings. But in solitude, that interference fades, and what emerges can be terrifying or profoundly liberating. Philosopher Philip Koch refers to this condition as attunement with oneself. He explains it as follows: attunement with oneself is best captured by the image of a free flow, the free stream of thoughts, desires, and emotions within consciousness without any sense of censorship or regulation. Philip Koch, Solitude, a Philosophical Encounter. Within this flow, long-forgotten desires rise to the surface, old wounds reopen, and shelved dreams return. Often, what appears isn't pleasant, but it is authentic. Author May Sarton, after spending a long time in seclusion, expressed, "I'm beginning to feel hints now of a return to some deep self, one that had been too overwhelmed and too wounded to function for a long time." May Sarton, Journal of a Solitude. This inward plunge is both unsettling and deeply healing. Nietzsche recognized the creative force that comes from inner chaos. One must have chaos within to give birth to a dancing star. Friedrich Nietzsche. Thus spoke Zarathustra. Solitude extends an invitation to embark on this inner expedition, not as a light-hearted journey, but as a courageous descent into the very core of our being. It is in this private, wordless space that true healing can begin. But can solitude really heal us, or does it simply expose what we've been running from? Solitude as psychological healing solitude can often feel harsh, almost merciless. Yet when embraced with awareness, it transforms into one of the most powerful tools for emotional restoration. It's easy to numb our pain by diving into distractions, social media, shallow conversations, endless entertainment. But what if, instead of running, We chose to face what hurts. Solitude demands exactly that. It brings us face to face with our inner demons. Albert Camus grasped this insight and articulated it clearly. When a man has learned, not just on paper, but truly learned to stay alone with his suffering, to resist the urge to escape, then there is little left for him to be taught. Albert Camus. This healing power isn't just a philosophical idea, it has been put into practice. Japanese physician Shoma Morita, founder of Morita therapy rooted in Zen Buddhism, developed a method that literally prescribes solitude as medicine. Ilse Viet, in describing this therapeutic approach, writes, "The patient is left alone with their illness until both the patient and the illness become one. They must come to terms with their condition in complete solitude." Ilse Viet. No diversions, no escape, only the truth. And it's within this honest confrontation that change begins to take place. Pain, when acknowledged and processed in silence, no longer remains a hidden adversary. It evolves into a powerful teacher. But has this always been the case? Have other cultures also recognized solitude as a step toward healing and personal growth? The answer lies in the most ancient traditions of humanity. Rites of passage and the cultural significance of solitude. Long before solitude was perceived as a sign of distress, it was honored as a rite of passage, a sacred moment marking the transition from what one was to what one is meant to become. Many ancient cultures recognized that certain truths can only be uncovered in the quiet stillness of isolation. Among the Tarahumara Indians in Mexico's Sierra Madre, for instance, solitude is not feared, it is venerated. Professor J. Ralph Aldi observed, "There is almost a cult of solitude among them. A small child of 6 might take his portion of pinole and vanish with the sheep for a week or two without encountering a single person before returning." Professor J. Ralph Aldi, man. The solitary animal in many tribal societies, young boys were taken to remote camps and left completely alone for days, weeks, even months. There, without anyone to guide or protect them, they confronted their fears, hunted, and survived on their own. When they returned, they were no longer children. They were men, shaped and matured by solitude. Reflecting on these rituals, psychotherapist James Hollis wrote, "Ritual isolation introduces a central truth. No matter how tribal our social lives may appear, we are ultimately on this journey alone, and we must learn to draw strength and comfort from within." James Hollis, Under Saturn's Shadow. These solitary journeys uncovered something fundamental: courage, identity, instinct. In the modern world, however, we've traded these sacred trials for constant notifications. We flee from emptiness as though it were poison. But in doing so, have we lost something essential? Perhaps what we're truly missing today isn't more company, but more silence. The invisible weight of social life. Being among others is essential to human existence, but it can also be deeply draining. Social interaction brings warmth and affection, certainly, but it also comes with expectations, pressures, and invisible demands that subtly shape who we are expected to be. Philosopher Philip Koch referred to these as structures of demand, emotional obligations requiring us to be attentive, empathetic, helpful, and available. Even the presence of a stranger can alter our experience. Imagine sitting alone in a park, immersed in the quiet harmony of nature, until someone sits beside you. Suddenly, the moment shifts. That silent connection with the environment is broken. Now, you exist as an object within someone else's awareness. Jean-Paul Sartre captured this disquiet in his famous declaration, "Hell is other people." Jean-Paul Sartre, being in nothingness. By the mere appearance of the other, I am forced to judge myself as an object. Jean-Paul Sartre. He elaborates, William James, both psychologist and philosopher, noticed a similar phenomenon. When a solitary walker sees another person in the distance, a sudden wave of self-consciousness arises, and with it, a sense of diminished freedom. Being with others can bring comfort, but it also imposes boundaries. In solitude, we are no longer observed. And it's precisely because of this that we can truly become ourselves. The rediscovery of the self in solitude, in the constant presence of others, we wear masks. We adapt to situations, calibrate our expressions, and moderate our speech. Over time, we begin to forget who we are when no one is watching. In solitude, that social performance falls away. There is no audience, no stage. It is here that rediscovery unfolds, quietly, deeply, unavoidably. Philip Koch emphasizes this point, stating that solitude guides us into a state of attunement with oneself, where thoughts, emotions, and desires flow freely, unrestrained by judgment or control. Freed from external scrutiny, the true self begins to surface. William Hazlitt, reflecting on the joy of walking alone, expressed it this way: "The essence of a solitary journey is freedom, perfect freedom to think, to feel, and to act exactly as one wishes." William Hazlitt, Table Talk. And it is Nietzsche who pushes this vision to the limits of authenticity. Man's maturity, that means to have rediscovered the seriousness one had as a child at play, but now alone. Friedrich Nietzsche. Beyond good and evil, in solitude, external noise fades and the true inner voice can finally be heard. But if rediscovering ourselves is such a rare privilege, why does our society fear silence so deeply? The modern world's cry against silence. We live in an era where silence is perceived as a threat. We've forgotten how to be still. Any pause is quickly filled with notifications, short videos, or hollow conversations. But why? Perhaps because silence draws us closer to what we try hardest to avoid, ourselves. For many, solitude is merely the in-between, a temporary void between relationships, obligations, and distractions. Yet, in running from it, we exile ourselves from our inner world. We've replaced ancient rites of solitary passage with mechanical routines, and in this collective escape from silence, we may be growing more fragile, more anxious, more lost. 17th century philosopher Blaise Pascal issued a striking warning long before our digital age. All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Blaise Pascal. Pensée. The absence of solitude is not a sign of progress, it's a profound loss. Because only through silence can we truly hear the voice that guides us inward, and when that voice goes silent, life may grow louder, but it becomes hollow. But what if, rather than fearing that emptiness, we learn to dwell in it? Perhaps there, and only there, lies the true beginning of greatness. Solitude as a path to greatness. Solitude is not a punishment, it is an invitation, a quiet calling to reclaim what was buried beneath the world's relentless noise. The most luminous souls throughout history understood that in the absence of others, the presence of self is born. Nietzsche, in his raw and piercing clarity, left us with one final warning: solitude is dangerous, it's addictive. Once you feel the peace it brings, you no longer want to deal with people. Friedrich Nietzsche. If you dare to walk through the silence, you will discover that it does not mark the end, but the very beginning of your greatness.